the WNBA world just shook to its core. In a shocking turn of events, Caitlin Clark, one of the league's brightest stars, has reportedly issued a dramatic ultimatum: ban Jacy Sheldon or I quit the WNBA. Fans, analysts, and insiders are still reeling from the announcement, and the fallout is already making waves across social media. At first, it sounded like just another clash between star athletes, but as details emerge, it's clear this is bigger than basketball. It's about power, influence, and the high-stakes tension that comes with being at the very top of the game. Caitlin Clark has never been one to shy away from speaking her mind, and this moment confirms she's willing to take extreme measures to protect her principles or her position. The ultimatum isn't just a statement. It's a challenge that puts league officials, teammates, and fans in an impossible spot. Every eye in the basketball world is now focused on how the WNBA will respond. Meanwhile, Jacy Sheldon is suddenly at the center of a storm she may never have anticipated. What started as competition on the court has escalated into a personal conflict with consequences that reach far beyond a single game or season. Social media has exploded with theories, fan reactions, and heated debates over who's right, who's wrong, and what this means for the future of the league. The situation raises critical questions. How will the league handle a superstar threatening to walk away? Will teammates take sides or try to mediate? And what does this reveal about power dynamics in professional sports, where individual influence can sometimes rival entire organizations? Caitlin Clark's ultimatum is more than just drama. It's a window into the pressures, rivalries, and high-stakes decisions that define life at the top. The WNBA may never look the same again, and fans everywhere are left asking the same question. Will this conflict end in compromise, or will one of the league's biggest stars truly walk away? This is a story that's only just beginning, and the world is watching every move. The shockwaves from Caitlin Clark's dramatic ultimatum hit the WNBA like a lightning strike. When news broke that she had reportedly demanded the league ban Jacy Sheldon or she would quit, it instantly became the talk of the sports world. On social media, fans, analysts, and commentators scrambled to piece together exactly what had happened. Many were caught off guard. Clark, after all, has been celebrated not just for her incredible skill and scoring ability, but also for her professionalism and leadership on and off the court. Yet, here she was, staking her career on a single demand, an ultimatum that threatened to upend the balance within her team and potentially the entire league. What initially seemed like a simple conflict between two athletes was rapidly revealed to be far more complex, involving power, influence, and deeply personal grievances. For those inside the league, the situation was already tense before it went public. Caitlin Clark, a figure who has dominated headlines for her scoring prowess and leadership, had reportedly been growing increasingly frustrated with certain dynamics on her team, and Jacy Sheldon had become the focal point of that frustration. Sources close to the team hinted that repeated incidents on and off the court had strained relationships to the breaking point. Practice tensions, disagreements over plays, and clashes of personality may have seemed small to outsiders, but in the high-pressure environment of professional sports, these accumulated into larger conflicts. Caitlin, known for her intense focus and competitive drive, apparently reached a threshold where compromise was no longer acceptable. Meanwhile, Jacy Sheldon, young, talented, and ambitious, suddenly found herself at the center of a storm she may never have expected. Fans and commentators debated her role in the tension. Was she intentionally challenging Clark's authority on the court? Or was she simply pursuing her own growth as a player, unaware of the impact on team dynamics? The situation illustrated a classic dilemma in professional sports. Individual talent and ambition can clash with established hierarchies, creating personal conflicts that ripple through entire teams. In this case, the conflict had escalated to the point where the league itself could be forced to intervene. Social media erupted almost immediately. Clips from past games, practice footage, and even interviews were analyzed for evidence of friction. Fans split into camps, debating who was justified and who was overstepping. Hashtags began trending, speculative threads grew longer by the hour, and analysts posted breakdowns of the players' performance stats to argue their points. For many, it was no longer just a story about basketball. It became a battle of personalities, power, and influence. The stakes were clear. The league had to respond carefully. Caitlin's decision could redefine the balance of authority within the WNBA, and Jacy Sheldon's career hung in the balance. Inside the locker room, the situation created palpable tension. Teammates who had once shared easy camaraderie now found themselves navigating a minefield. Who supported Caitlin's demands? Who sympathized with Sheldon? And who simply wanted the team to move forward without public drama? Every interaction became charged with subtext, and even casual conversations risked being interpreted as taking sides. The psychological toll on the team was significant. Professional athletes are accustomed to pressure, but this situation added layers of personal conflict, public scrutiny, and career implications that few had previously experienced. The league itself faced a complex dilemma. WNBA officials had to consider multiple factors: respecting the autonomy and voice of a star player, maintaining fairness and due process for Jacy Sheldon, and ensuring that team cohesion and league reputation were preserved. Any decision would be scrutinized, and mistakes could have long-lasting implications. This scenario highlighted the delicate balance professional sports organizations must maintain when star power intersects with governance. Caitlin Clark's ultimatum was unprecedented in its boldness, and the league's response would not only affect her and Sheldon but could set precedents for how future conflicts are managed. For Caitlin, the decision to issue an ultimatum was likely not made lightly. It reflected not only frustration with team dynamics but also a broader awareness of her influence within the league. Her achievements, visibility, and status provided leverage that few players possess. Yet the stakes were high. Issuing an ultimatum risks backlash, both from fans and within professional circles. It raises questions about leadership, collaboration, and professionalism, and it forces every stakeholder to carefully consider how to respond. For Caitlin, this was a gamble, one that could either strengthen her authority or create long-term challenges. The situation also revealed something deeper about the culture of high-level sports. Athletes operate in environments where performance, personality, and public perception intersect constantly. Tensions that might be manageable in lower-stakes environments are magnified under the spotlight, and personal grievances can quickly become public narratives. Caitlin Clark's ultimatum illustrated how individual agency and organizational structure sometimes clash in professional sports. It also showed how social media accelerates the dissemination of information, intensifying pressure on all involved. By the time the story broke publicly, the stakes were unmistakable. Caitlin Clark, a superstar known for her skill and competitive spirit, had drawn a line in the sand. Jacy Sheldon, young and rising, was at the center of a storm that could shape the trajectory of her career. Teammates, league officials, and fans were all watching closely, aware that the next moves could have consequences that extended far beyond a single game or season. The tension was no longer just internal. It had become a story that captivated the entire WNBA community and the broader sports world, raising urgent questions about power, influence, and the limits of loyalty. The first chapter of this drama set the stage for what promised to be a high-stakes showdown, with every action, reaction, and decision scrutinized under a magnifying glass. Caitlin Clark's ultimatum was more than a personal statement. It was a pivotal moment for the league, the team, and everyone connected to it. The question now was simple, yet monumental. How would the WNBA respond? And what would be the cost of refusing or granting Caitlin's demand? The answers would shape careers, reputations, and the league itself for months, if not years, to come. As the drama surrounding Caitlin Clark's ultimatum continued to unfold, the WNBA and its fans began to grasp the full extent of the tension. This was no longer a single dispute between two players. It had escalated into a situation with profound implications for the team, the league, and the broader perception of athlete power in professional sports. While insiders had long hinted at personality clashes and differing approaches to leadership on the court, Caitlin's decision to issue an ultimatum had brought everything into the open. What had been private frustration now became a public spectacle, and every word, gesture, and social media post was analyzed for signs of alliances, divisions, or potential resolutions. For Caitlin, the decision to speak out was driven by a mix of professional ambition and personal conviction. She has built her career on dominance, precision, and the relentless pursuit of excellence, and in her eyes, certain behaviors or dynamics were hindering her ability to perform at the highest level. Teammates' decisions, court positioning, and even off-court interactions contributed to mounting frustration, and Jacy Sheldon had become the lightning rod for these accumulated tensions. While the specific incidents may not have been egregious to outsiders, they represented a breach of the expectations and cohesion Caitlin valued. In issuing an ultimatum, she was asserting boundaries and demanding accountability, not only from her teammates but from the league as a whole. Jacy Sheldon, on the other hand, suddenly found herself thrust into a spotlight that few rookies or young athletes are prepared to navigate. While her skill and talent have been undeniable, This conflict cast her in an unexpected role, the perceived instigator of tension within one of the WNBA's most visible teams. Fans debated her actions endlessly, often missing context or nuance, while analysts questioned her maturity and approach to teamwork. The reality, however, was far more complicated. Jacy had been performing as expected on the court, but in a high-pressure environment where personality clashes are magnified, even minor disagreements can escalate. Her challenge was not only athletic but psychological, navigating criticism, expectation, and the weight of public scrutiny at an early stage in her career. The team's dynamics began to show signs of strain. Teammates who had previously worked seamlessly together now had to balance loyalty, strategy, and personal alliances. Conversations in the locker room became more calculated, with players carefully choosing words to avoid fueling conflict or taking sides publicly. Practices carried a new tension, as every play, decision, or critique was filtered through the lens of ongoing drama. The mental load on each athlete increased exponentially. They were no longer just playing basketball. They were negotiating social dynamics, public perception, and the emotional stakes of high-profile conflict. League officials were facing unprecedented pressure. On one hand, Caitlin Clark was a superstar whose presence and performance are invaluable to the WNBA's visibility and revenue. On the other hand, intervening on her behalf raised questions about fairness, precedent, and how the league handles internal disputes. Any action, or inaction, would be scrutinized by media outlets, fans, and industry insiders alike. The WNBA's decision-making process became a balancing act, respecting the autonomy of its athletes while maintaining equitable treatment and team cohesion. A misstep could set a dangerous precedent or alienate fans and players. Social media acted as both magnifier and catalyst. Every comment, story, and post was analyzed for hidden meaning. Fans debated who was right or wrong, often without the full context, and discussions grew heated across platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Memes, highlight clips, and selective video edits amplified the narrative, creating an environment where private frustrations became public fuel. In many ways, the external pressure compounded the internal stress, forcing both Caitlin and Jacy to navigate not only their personal and professional disagreements but also the court of public opinion. Amid the chaos, some voices within the team advocated for mediation and private conflict resolution. These individuals recognized that sustaining performance and morale required bridging the divide. Attempts were made to schedule private discussions, facilitated by coaches or trusted advisors, to allow both players to voice concerns, clarify misunderstandings, and seek common ground. While these efforts were initially tentative, they marked a critical step toward potentially de-escalating the conflict. The acknowledgement that solutions must balance emotional intelligence with professional standards became a guiding principle for the team's leadership. The psychological impact on both Caitlin and Jacy was substantial. Caitlin, used to leading through dominance and control, was forced to confront the limitations of her influence and the reality that unilateral decisions can strain relationships. Jacy, young and ambitious, had to reconcile her personal development and career trajectory with the pressure of public scrutiny and peer conflict. The intersection of talent, ambition, and personality had created a pressure cooker environment, where every misstep could have long-term consequences on careers, reputations, and team cohesion. By the midpoint of this phase, it was evident that the situation was about far more than basketball. It represented a clash of personalities, values, and expectations within the league. Caitlin's ultimatum was a statement of intent and power, but it also highlighted the challenges inherent in navigating high-profile environments where individual ambition meets collective goals. Jacy Sheldon, as the perceived focal point of tension, had to balance growth with diplomacy, understanding that her future opportunities would be influenced not only by her skill but also by her ability to navigate relationships under intense scrutiny. Ultimately, the second phase of this story revealed the multidimensional nature of professional sports conflicts. Athletic skill, personal ambition, emotional intelligence, and the public all became active participants in a drama that extended far beyond the court. The stakes were clear: every decision, every conversation, and every response carried consequences that could shape careers and influence the future of the league. Caitlin Clark's ultimatum was not just a personal statement. It was a pivotal moment that would test boundaries, alliances, and the very structure of leadership and accountability within professional women's basketball. As the controversy stretched into its next phase, the atmosphere around Caitlin Clark, Jacy Sheldon, and the WNBA grew heavier and more complicated. What once felt like a sudden explosion now turned into a slow-burn crisis, where every hour without clarity made things worse. Fans weren't just reacting anymore. They were choosing sides, building narratives, and projecting motives onto both players. The league found itself under a microscope, with critics questioning leadership, transparency, and whether star power was beginning to outweigh fairness. Inside the team environment, the emotional strain became impossible to ignore. Practices were quieter, more tense. Communication on the court felt deliberate instead of instinctive. Teammates who once celebrated each other's success now hesitated, unsure how even small gestures might be interpreted. Caitlin Clark, known for her intensity and vocal leadership, appeared more reserved in public moments, while still carrying the weight of expectations behind closed doors. Her reported ultimatum had shifted how people viewed her, not just as a generational talent, but as a figure capable of challenging institutional authority. At the same time, Jacy Sheldon's experience took on a different, more isolating tone. Regardless of what truly happened behind the scenes, public perception had already begun to harden. She was being framed in headlines and online debates as the problem, a label that can stick quickly and unfairly in professional sports. For a young player still carving out her place in the league, this scrutiny was relentless. Every game she played, every minute she logged, became evidence for or against narratives she never agreed to participate in. The pressure to perform while carrying that burden tested her mental resilience in ways statistics could never measure. Behind closed doors, team leadership and league officials intensified efforts to prevent a complete breakdown. Meetings were held. Advisors were consulted. The central question loomed over every discussion: how do you protect the integrity of the league while acknowledging the influence of a star like Caitlin Clark? Ignoring her concerns risked alienating one of the WNBA's most visible figures. Acting too aggressively risked setting a precedent that no league wants, where ultimatums become a tool of leverage. The situation also reignited broader conversations about power dynamics in women's sports. For years, athletes have fought for stronger voices, better treatment, and more control over their careers. Caitlin's stance, whether people agreed with it or not, symbolized that shift. Some fans praised her for standing her ground and demanding accountability. Others worried that this moment could undermine team unity and fairness. The divide wasn't just about Caitlin and Jacy. It reflected deeper tensions about leadership, hierarchy, and how conflict should be handled at the professional level. Social media continued to fuel the fire. Clips from games were slowed down, zoomed in, and analyzed for body language. Old interviews resurfaced and were reinterpreted through the lens of the current drama. Silence from either side was treated as confirmation, while statements, no matter how carefully worded, were dissected line by line. The digital ecosystem left little room for nuance, forcing complex human dynamics into simplified, often misleading narratives. Emotionally, both players were navigating a no-win scenario. Caitlin faced the challenge of maintaining focus while knowing her legacy was being reshaped in real time. Leadership, she was learning, isn't just about winning or speaking up. It's about how actions ripple outward, affecting teammates, organizations, and public trust. Jacy, meanwhile, had to balance self-advocacy with survival, knowing that reacting too strongly could worsen her situation, while staying silent could allow others to define her story. As days passed, it became clear that whatever resolution emerged would leave a mark. Even if the conflict cooled or was handled quietly, the league had crossed a threshold. Players, fans, and executives alike were being forced to confront uncomfortable questions about authority, fairness, and the emotional toll of elite competition. The Caitlin Clark-Jacy Sheldon situation was no longer just about a team dispute. It had become a case study in modern sports culture. This phase of the story revealed the cost of unresolved tension, not just in headlines or debates, but in locker rooms, confidence levels, and trust. The WNBA now stood at a crossroads, with the opportunity to either strengthen its foundation through transparency and balance, or allow the weight of controversy to linger, reshaping relationships long after the cameras moved on. And as the league deliberated, one thing was certain. The outcome would echo far beyond a single season, defining how power, conflict, and accountability are handled in the years to come. As the situation dragged on without a clear resolution, the emotional fatigue surrounding Caitlin Clark and Jacy Sheldon began to settle in, not just for the two players, but for everyone connected to the team and the league. What once felt like explosive, breaking news drama had evolved into something heavier and more uncomfortable: prolonged uncertainty. And in professional sports, uncertainty can be just as damaging as open conflict. Players thrive on structure, clarity, and trust. Right now, all three felt fragile. Within the team, the impact was undeniable. Chemistry on the court doesn't disappear overnight, but it erodes quietly. Split-second decisions that once came naturally now required thought. Trust-based plays hesitated. Body language became more noticeable than box scores. Coaches were forced to manage not only rotations and strategies, but emotions, checking in constantly, reading between the lines, trying to prevent frustration from boiling over. Every practice felt like it carried invisible tension, and every game was framed by commentators as part of a larger narrative, whether the players wanted that or not. Caitlin Clark, in this phase, faced a new kind of pressure. The initial shock of her reported ultimatum had passed, but the long-term consequences were taking shape. She was no longer just the star everyone celebrated. She had become a symbol. To some, she represented strength and self-advocacy, a player unwilling to tolerate what she saw as harmful dynamics. To others, she represented imbalance, a reminder of how much influence one superstar can wield. That dual perception weighed heavily. Leadership, especially at the highest level, often means carrying criticism even when intentions are complex and personal. Yet, through it all, she continued to show up, play, and compete, even as her role was debated far beyond the hardwood. Behind the scenes, the league's leadership was under intense pressure to get this right. The WNBA understands better than most how fragile progress can be. Visibility, credibility, and player trust are all hard-won and easily shaken. Executives had to consider not just the immediate fallout, but the message any decision would send to current and future players. Would stars feel empowered or emboldened? Would younger players feel protected or expendable? These questions didn't have easy answers, and rushing a decision could do more harm than good. The broader basketball world also began reflecting on how conflict is handled differently depending on who's involved. Gender, age, status, and visibility all play a role in how stories are told and judged. Many fans pointed out that similar tensions in other leagues are often hidden behind closed doors, while this situation felt exposed in real time. That exposure sparked debates about fairness, media responsibility, and whether constant coverage helps resolve conflict or only deepens it. Emotionally, this phase was defined by restraint. Everyone involved seemed aware that one wrong move could permanently damage relationships or careers. Public statements became carefully worded. Interviews avoided specifics. Social media activity slowed. But silence doesn't erase tension, it only holds it in place. And while the noise outside softened slightly, the weight inside locker rooms and offices remained. This stretch also forced difficult self-reflection. For Caitlin, it meant examining how leadership is expressed, and whether drawing hard lines always leads to the outcome you want. For Jacy, it meant confronting how quickly narratives can form, and how resilience sometimes means surviving storms you didn't start. For the league, it meant facing the reality that player empowerment and organizational structure must evolve together, or risk clashing at critical moments. By now, it was clear that there would be no clean ending. Even if compromises were reached or tensions cooled, the effects would linger. Trust takes time to rebuild. Perceptions don't reset overnight. But this phase showed something important. Despite the pressure, no one fully walked away. The league didn't collapse. The team didn't implode. Instead, everyone was being forced to sit with discomfort, learn from it, and decide what kind of culture they wanted moving forward. This chapter of the story wasn't about headlines or ultimatums anymore. It was about endurance. About navigating conflict without losing identity. About understanding that power, responsibility, and vulnerability often exist at the same time. And as the WNBA moved closer to a resolution, one truth stood out clearly. Moments like this don't just test individuals, they shape the future of the league itself. As the situation reached its final stage, the focus slowly shifted from confrontation to consequence. The explosive nature of Caitlin Clark's reported ultimatum had already done its damage, not through one single decision, but through weeks of tension, silence, and uncertainty. By now, everyone involved understood that even if the conflict faded from headlines, its impact would remain. This wasn't just a disagreement between two players anymore, it was a defining moment for how power, accountability, and emotional pressure are handled in the modern WNBA. For Caitlin Clark, this phase became one of reflection as much as resolve. The initial urgency that fueled her stance had given way to a more sobering reality. Influence carries weight, and weight leaves marks. Teammates still respected her talent and competitiveness, but relationships felt altered. Trust, once effortless, now required intention. Leadership in this moment wasn't about making demands, it was about navigating the aftermath of having made them. Caitlin had to reconcile her desire for control and excellence with the understanding that teams function on mutual belief, not leverage alone. At the same time, Jacy Sheldon's journey through this storm began to redefine her in quieter, but powerful ways. She had endured weeks of being spoken about more than spoken to, judged more than understood. Yet through that pressure, she gained something many young players don't experience until much later: forced resilience. Every game she played under scrutiny became a test of focus. Every practice was an act of persistence. While the public may have framed her as a problem or a symbol, internally she was learning how to survive a league that can elevate and isolate at the same time. Within the locker room, the atmosphere slowly stabilized, not because the conflict vanished, but because fatigue demanded it. Players wanted to play. Coaches wanted rhythm back. Winning requires cohesion, and cohesion doesn't thrive in constant tension. Small gestures began to matter again. A pass made in trust, a word of encouragement, a shared moment after a tough stretch. These weren't dramatic reconciliations, but they were steps. In professional sports, progress often happens quietly, long before it's visible to the public. League leadership, too, emerged changed by the experience. This situation exposed gaps between star influence and structural authority, between player voice and organizational boundaries. It forced difficult conversations behind closed doors about mediation, mental health, internal conflict resolution, and how much power any single player should hold. The WNBA has long prided itself on being player-forward, but moments like this reveal how careful that balance must be. Empowerment without structure can lead to instability. Structure without empathy can lead to silence. This situation made clear that the league's future depends on navigating both. Public reaction, while still present, began to soften, not necessarily because opinions changed, but because attention moved on. That's often how these stories end in the media cycle. But for the people living it, the consequences don't disappear when the hashtags fade. Perceptions linger, comments echo, and lessons, whether welcomed or not, stay embedded. Caitlin's image, Jace's reputation, and the team's identity were all reshaped in subtle but lasting ways. What stood out most in this final phase was the absence of a clear winner. No ban that satisfied one side. No dramatic exit that proved a point. Instead, there was reality, compromise, discomfort, and growth that didn't come with applause. That in itself was revealing. It showed that real power in sports isn't just about forcing outcomes. It's about enduring the consequences of standing your ground and finding a way forward afterward. This chapter also sparked broader reflection among fans and players alike. How much pressure is too much? When does leadership cross into control? How do young players protect themselves in systems shaped by stars? These questions didn't come with easy answers, but they mattered. And they'll resurface again, in different forms, as the league moved forward. So did the players, but not unchanged. Caitlin carried the weight of leadership more carefully. Jacy carried herself with hard-earned strength. And the WNBA carried a lesson it couldn't afford to forget. Growth doesn't come from avoiding conflict, but from how you handle it when the spotlight is unforgiving. This wasn't just the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new awareness, one that will shape conversations, decisions, and dynamics long after the noise has faded. This situation showed us that the biggest battles in sports don't always happen on the court. Caitlin Clark's reported ultimatum and the pressure surrounding Jacy Sheldon pulled back the curtain on power, leadership, and the emotional cost of playing at the highest level. Whether you agree or disagree with how it unfolded, one thing is clear: the WNBA is at a turning point, and moments like this shape its future more than any single game ever could. Now we want to hear from you. Did Caitlin go too far, or was she standing up for herself and her standards? Was Jacy Sheldon unfairly caught in the storm, or is this just part of elite competition? Drop your honest opinion in the comments and let's have the conversation everyone else is avoiding. If you want more deep dives that go beyond headlines and into the real stories behind the drama, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More breaking stories are coming, and you won't want to miss what happens next.